On today's video, my top 11 tips, tricks, and hacks for ice fishing to help make your experience on the hard water a little simpler, a little easier, a little more efficient. Hey there, outdoor YouTubers. It's Dave Knetter from Knetter's Practical Outdoors. And you know, like I said earlier, I'm going to go over my top 11 tricks, tips, and hacks for ice fishing. Okay? Just a few little odds and ends to make ice fishing a little easier, a little simpler, you know, a little more efficient. Okay? Now, for some of you long-term viewers to the channel, you've probably seen some of these. I've got them sprinkled in throughout some different ice fishing videos here and there. Okay, I'm going to throw a few new ones in to this video. But, you know, for any of you out there that do ice fish, I think there's going to be a little something for everyone, again, to make things a little simpler, a little easier, a little more efficient out on the hard water. Alright, number 11. Adding some kind of a buckboard to your guys' portable sleds that you take out on the ice with you. Okay, you can see this sled's not really that big. This sled was originally a one-man flip-over portable shack, right? I bought it like 25 years ago. The one disappointing thing is it really wasn't quite big enough to fit my power auger in it with a lot of the rest of the gear that I wanted to bring. Okay, so I added this buckboard to the front edge of it. All right. Okay, and I put the auger like this. Then I had a few hooks here that I could add a bungee cord, like that. And then the auger stayed pretty secure, kind of up on top of the sled. And as you can see, there's a lot more room down below for the rest of your gear. Okay, now it might be the auger that you want to get up and above the rest of your gear. It might be your big portable shelter. But adding a buckboard, maybe one in the front and the back, being able to string stuff across it, can add a lot of room to your sled that you take out onto the ice. Okay, number 10, adding a wooden base to your wind tip-ups. Okay, now I know not all you guys out there use wind tip-ups, but those of you that have, if you've used this style, you know that they kind of come just with this black wooden base, right? Okay, you can see where I taped this wood onto the bottom of this black wooden base. And the instructions that come with the tip-up tell you to take this base and kind of pack snow over the back of it when it's next to the hole, because if you don't, the wind's going to blow it over. Okay, they're very tippy, especially if the ice isn't perfectly flat. They're going to be very tippy next to your hole, and they just tip over a lot. Okay, so like I say, in the instructions they even tell you, take snow and ice and kind of pack it on top of this, and that kind of holds them in place, which is fine as long as you have good packable snow and ice out on the hard water that day that you're fishing, right? But if you don't, you might be out of luck. Okay, and even if you do have good packable snow that you can kind of put on top of this and hold it in place, it's kind of a pain. I know when I get a fish on one of these, I like to move the tip up out of the way, kind of get ready to hook and fight the fish, and then okay, then you're going to set it back down the hole after you catch the fish, right? So now you're packing that snow back on top of this base. Really doesn't work all that well. So all I do is I take a 2x6, old chunk of 2x6, tape this base to the 2x6, you know, run some decking screws out at angles. Okay, those are kind of the legs or feet to kind of hold it in place. And I actually do have some wire nuts on the ends of them, you know, just so you don't have those sharp edges poking into stuff hands, other equipment, that sort of thing. But this setup really does hold pretty well on the ice, and it works really good if you do use these wind tip-ups. Next up, number 9, adding PVC tubes, all right, for helping store your tip-ups in your tip-up box, your tip-up bag, whatever container you use for tip-ups. It could be a 5-gallon pail. It's kind of nice to have these PVC tubes that your tip-ups fit right into. Kind of keeps them separated, keeps them from hooking into each other, keeps them from getting hung up on each other. You know, works real good. You can access the tip-ups really nice and easy. And of course the PVC pipes, you can put them, chunks of those into any container that you might keep your tip-ups in. Number 8, anytime you're fishing with just an artificial lure, okay, always add some kind of scent, some kind of live bait, some kind of dead bait to that lure, okay? Like if you're jigging with this jigging wrap, add something to it. Whether you're adding a couple of grubs to the bottom treble hook, or one on each end, something like that. Certainly like this spray-on scent is a good option too. And one thing I do a lot of times is I use fish oil pills. Okay, got these like gel tab fish oil pills. When I'm out fishing, I'll poke that fish oil pill and I'll kind of squirt it on the lure, okay? And you know, if you think about it, especially you walleye fishermen out there, right? You troll around all summer with crawler harnesses, right? And you're pretty adamant about putting that crawler on the back of that spinner, right? Because that kind of seals the deal. That kind of closes the deal in the end. That fish gets attracted, you know, from a distance away, sees that spinner spinning, gets up close, maybe it's nose to nose with that crawler harness, but then that real crawler, that real scent, really kind of seals the deal. And then even when the fish hits it, I think it really helps to have just that right flavor that kind of convinces them, yeah, this is something to eat, and they hold on to it a little bit longer maybe. Gives you time to set the hook, that sort of thing. You know, think about it, you guys. How many of you guys have been out on the ice jigging with, you know, just a plain artificial lure, all right, and you're watching your electronics, and a fish comes right up, and it just seems like they're nose to nose with your lure, and you're jigging it, you're dancing it, you're twitching it, you're trying to do everything you can to convince that fish to bite, and nothing works, and all of a sudden that fish just kind of turns and swims away. Okay, that's happened to all of us, right? Well, I know when that's going on, I really would be disappointed in myself if I didn't have some kind of scent, some kind of, you know, half minnow, some kind of grub, some kind of fish oil on that lure. You know, maybe it bumped its nose right into the lure to see, is this really something I want to eat? And that extra scent, or maybe it actually did bite it real quick and let go, and maybe that extra flavor would have had them hold on to it long enough for you to set the hook, that sort of thing. So anytime I'm fishing with a purely artificial, I'm putting some kind of scent, some kind of live bait, some kind of a half minnow dead bait, something on that artificial, just to give it that realistic flavor, realistic scent. Number 7. Using a cordless drill to spool your tip-ups. Now, how I do that is I'll take a cordless drill and I'll kind of clamp it to the bench, okay? I'll use a piece of electrical tape to turn the trigger on and off, okay, to spin the drill. And then you couple it up with some kind of a nut driver or a socket. And oftentimes these tip-ups, especially these rail styles, will have kind of a nut on the end, okay? And you can take that nut and you can stick it in to the cordless drill as it's spinning, okay? And of course that's going to spin the spool, and that can take up the line to spool your tip-up, okay? Now, if you just went out and bought one new tip-up, you want to put some line on it, might not really be worth the hassle of going to all that trouble with the cordless drill, okay? But if you went out and you really upgraded your arsenal and you bought like 4 or 6 brand new tip-ups and you wanted to spool them up, yeah, that might help you out quite a bit, you know, to get that drill set up and help you spool your tip-ups up. Number 6, okay, opening up this line guide on your tip-ups so the line can go in and the line can go out, okay? And the reason I do that is when a fish takes a bunch of line off my tip-up, and maybe I'm done fighting the fish and I've got all the line laying on the ice, instead of having that line stuck inside this guide and having me kind of hold it like this and wind it up, okay, what I like to do is slide that guide right out of the way, pull the line out of the guide, all right, and then just wind it on hand over hand. You know, to me, it goes a lot quicker. And, you know, another thing about doing it that way that I like is if I do have a lot of the line laying on the ice, and of course the line was just in the water, so it's wet, if that line is freezing up, it is kind of nice to, as you're kind of running it onto the tip up, kind of run all the ice off it, spin a few on, run all the ice off of it, and spin it on, okay? So I really like to open these up. A lot of times they're just kind of one big kind of a spring steel that you can just kind of bend open, all right? So that makes it real easy to put it on and off. And, you know, even this style of tip-up with this solid ring, I just cut a little slot in it with a hacksaw, you know, and I kind of, you know, took a file and I kind of cleaned up so there's no sharp edges. But even with this style, I do like to have that opening so I can just get that right out of the way, get the line out from that line guide, and just kind of wrap it on hand over hand. Okay, number 5, another tip, trick, or hack for ice fishing. Using a cooler for your minnow bucket. Alright, this is generally the one that I use when I'm out ice fishing, you know, when I'm using live minnows. Okay, and a couple things that really makes this work over a lot of your other options, because there is a lot of options out there for minnow buckets, right? And maybe this will ring a bell with some of you guys when I go through some of them. But anyways, this is insulated, okay? That's very important when you're ice fishing, okay? If you use an uninsulated minnow bucket, like this style, which is fine in the summer, okay, most of the time, but in the winter that can be a problem, okay? The water inside this will start freezing up pretty quickly. And another thing that's not very ideal about this is it's really quite open, right? If this gets sloshed around, water's going to be splashing around, and maybe that's no big deal when you're out fishing in the summer. But in the winter, now you've got water sloshing around in your sled, maybe it's going on your poles, maybe it's going on your electronics, and freezing, of course, that's a problem, right? So this one here, this uninsulated, you know, kind of an open, freewheeling top on it, this is not ideal at all for ice fishing, right? For a lot of the obvious reasons. Now, here's another style. This does have insulation on the inside, but the top is still fairly open, okay? All right? The cold air can get into the top real easy and start freezing, you know, on the inside of the minnow bucket again. And this one too. If it's getting bounced around in the back of a sled, you know, as you're heading out on the ice, that water's splashing around. Another thing that happens when all that water's sloshing around is pretty quick. You get a bunch of water on here, and now this lid won't open. It's froze shut, okay? And now you're fighting it to open it up, okay? So even though this one's insulated, still this kind of this open air top, right? There's, you know, it's got all these air holes and stuff. You're going to get all that cold air in there, and the water's going to start freezing, okay? So that brings us to this one, right? I know all you guys out there have used this style of minnow bucket, okay? I did a whole video on the downfalls and pitfalls of using this style, all right? Okay, this one's insulated, right? There's no open air top to it, but again, you know, when water sloshes around in here, it gets up here on the inside of this, you know, this lid, freezes, and now you're fighting with this. Now, hey guys, how many times have you been pulling on this when it's froze shut, and you just and you bust off some of this styrofoam lid? I know I've done that several times, okay? And you know, don't get me wrong, water will slosh around in here also, and it'll freeze this lid shut tight too. But the difference with this, it's built a lot tougher, right? You can give it a little pop with your fist. You can get in here and you can kind of pry on it, maybe with your skimmer, you know, or some kind of screwdriver, something like that. You can maybe kind of bump it on the edge of your snowmobile or something, and you can kind of, you know, bust free that that frozen ice seal and get the lid off. But don't try that with the styrofoam, right? 'Cause you're just going to bust it. This one's not insulated, you know, so the water's just going to freeze up anytime it's at all cold. Same with this one. Even though there's insulation inside on the bottom, it's still got this open air top. Cold air is going to get in there, start freezing the surface of the water, Okay, so I really like using these coolers, especially when I'm ice fishing. Now, I actually use this one in the summertime too, you know, because it is insulated, it is strong, it is tough. It's a little bigger. I use this one in the summer just because it's a little big a lot of times for the ice fishing that I do. And, you know, a lot of times in the winter, you don't need nearly as much water for the same amount of minnows that you would need in the summer, right? That cooler water stays nice and cool in the winter when you're out ice fishing. And you really can cram quite a few minnows into a container like this, and they will stay alive on you all day, you know, because of the cold air temperatures, the cold water inside. They really will last a lot longer than they will sometimes in the summer when that water starts warming up. So, real good tip for you guys. Use these coolers for your minnow buckets. Works out real well. Number 4, okay? Stop using these cheap little bobbers as the line markers on your tip-ups, okay? What I like to use is I cut the tips off of those bobbers with this spring-loaded top that you use in the summer for fishing, okay? And I just use them, and I just attach them the same way you would if you were summer fishing with the bobbers. And they really hold in place real good, okay? All right, because I've always had a lot of problems with these little bobbers that they actually sell these for line marker use with tip-ups, but I've had a lot of problems with them, okay? And maybe you guys have too. One thing that happens, okay, you attach it to the line, right? Maybe you just attach it on one side, okay? Fish takes your line, you're fighting the fish, and you're pulling this line up the hole, all right? When this bobber gets on the edge of the hole, it's just going to slip, right? Okay, if that line goes down the hole and that out at an angle, this bobber is going to catch the edge of that hole and it's just going to slip and you're going to lose the place that you marked, okay? All right, and I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, you know, you got to attach both ends, right? Like you normally would. Okay, well, I've done that a lot too. So let's attach both ends, okay? Now we got both ends attached, right? And this one, it still slides a little bit one way. It's not too bad the other way. But here's the next thing that'll happen to you, okay? You're out fishing, you've got this attached to the line, you got both ends of the bobber attached to the line, so it's fairly secure, doesn't want to move on you. But you're out fishing and you get a decent sized fish on your tip up, okay? You go to set the hook or you're fighting the fish and a lot of tension gets put on this line, okay? The line wants to try to straighten out and it kind of bends these the little metal ends that attach to your line, okay? And once they get bent, oh, now they slide pretty easy, okay? So I never did like using these little bobbers for line markers on tip-ups. Seems like they were constantly going loose on me for a variety of different reasons. Number 3, attaching a piece of foam to all your tip-ups, okay? That's where you can put your hooks into there, okay? Like this particular tip-up has a quick strike rig on it. I've got 2 trebles. Those trebles are buried in that foam. They're not going to hook into my fingers when I'm pulling a tip-up out of the container. They're not hooking into other tip-ups. They're nice and safe and secure right there. And you can store extra hooks there if you want, that sort of thing. Like I said, I got one on this style, you know, on the rail style. And I even incorporate them onto my wind tip-ups also. Some sort of piece of foam somewhere on the tip-up to bury those hooks into and maybe keep a few spare hooks there just in case. Number 2, putting your electronics into some sort of a tackle bag. Alright, now I know a lot of the fish finders that you take out on the ice, you know, the more deluxe versions come with some kind of a bag that you zip close. It protects it, and maybe there's a little room for maybe one small little tackle box. But I kind of wanted to upgrade from that and actually just put this Vexilar in an actual tackle bag, okay? It holds several tackle boxes, several, you know, different pieces of gear, pliers, tape measures, little containers to hold bait, a minnow scoop that I actually use as a skimmer fits on here, all sorts of things. So when I'm doing the hole hopping thing, going around hole to hole, I've really got all that I need right there, right along with my electronics. I got my jigging rod in one hand, I got this in the other, and I'm going out hole hopping, and I really have got all my stuff right here. So you might want to consider that, putting your electronics, putting your fish finder in an actual tackle bag to kind of be able to take all the stuff you really want to take when you're going hole hopping, or just have it handy right there with your fish finder. Alright, number 1, okay, last but not least. Okay, and these really are in no particular order, okay, so don't get real hyped up and excited about this last one like it's the number 1 best overall tip, trick, and hack that you could possibly find out about for ice fishing, okay, because it's really not, okay. I think you can see where I'm going. If you guys use Mr. Heater, these little buddy heaters, right, kind of come like this, okay, just ditch this little plastic base that they give you with them when you buy them. Okay, the footprint is too small. If the ice is the least bit uneven, very tippy, okay, the head of this, you know, there's some bulk and there's some weight to the head of this up high, so they can be very tippy when they're in this. Grab a few pieces of wood, make yourself a homemade base like this one. It's obviously nothing fancy at all. A few pieces of wood, a few screws, and voila, there you go. And I kind of cut this out, right? So this actually fits down inside of a 5-gallon pail, alright? So sometimes I will actually transport this in the 5-gallon pail or bucket, just like this, right in the base, okay? But these little plastic bases that they sell with them, they're just too small, too tippy, you know. If you're always dealing with a perfectly flat surface, maybe it'd be fine. But hey, you ice fishermen out there know we're not always dealing with a perfectly flat surface, right? Okay, there you go. Alright guys. Well, there's 11 tips, tricks, and hacks, you know, to make your time out on the hard water a little easier, a little simpler, a little more efficient, okay? Alright, again, some of you guys have been watching my channel for a while, might have recognized a few of them. There's a few new ones thrown in there, you know, so I hope there was a little something for all you guys out there watching. But hey, guys, remember this: hunt, fish, laugh, repeat. This is Dave Knetter from Knetter's Practical Outdoors. Hey, thanks for watching and God bless.